Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are while we are on higher ground, 5,280 feet, where we expect you to be in September at Mile High. Rise up to milehigh.com. And when you're listening to this podcast, which has so many views and downloads every week, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. And now today, I'm super thrilled to have on this podcast the phenomenal Dr. Stephanie Libs, who will be part of a pediatric breakout group led up by Elise Rigney at Mile High this year. Stephanie Libs is a pediatric and prenatal chiropractor in San Diego, and she has become known as the breastfeeding doc in her area, and she's certified for the ICPA in pediatrics and also the IBCLC, the International Board of Certified Lactation Consultants. And she has a rocking practice with associates, and while that is going on, she has time to have kids of her own too. And she runs her local philosophy group. It's super exciting to have her as part of Mile High. Dr. Stephanie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's such an honor.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and I'm really excited about the breakout group that you're going to be doing. It sounds super fun, clinical, crazy, exciting, and energizing. And before we say more about that, let's help people get to know you a little bit more. There's a lot of fine things I want to find out how you ended up in, but how did you first end up in chiropractic, period?
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so my parents always went to chiropractors when I was a kid. They always went because they had bad backs. And I remember at some point tagging along to their visit, and, my mom or dad was getting adjusted, and I was like, I think I should get adjusted. I think that'd be good for me too. My back hurts. I was like maybe 12 at the time, but for some reason my brain was like, I need that too. And I saw the chiropractor had pictures of his kids on the wall. So I was like, he's got kids. He probably knows how to adjust a kid. So I asked if I could start getting adjusted. I had neck pain, back pain, headaches as a kid, and did competitive sports and all the things. And so I started getting adjusted just whenever I was in pain and I had time or on my school schedule, whatever. And I remember eventually by sometime in high school, I think I asked him, I was like, doc, how often should someone get headaches? And he was like, never. I was like, yeah, no, but like everybody gets them. Like, how often is normal? He's like, it's not normal to ever have a headache. I was like, huh. So maybe should I get adjusted regularly to like prevent that? And he was like, yeah. And that was it. And I was like, could you tell me more about that? But he was a pain-based doc, and that's just what he did. But every time I went, I felt better, and it helped. It helped me take less ibuprofen in my life. So fast forward, I think I was 18 at the time. I was working at a silly job somewhere, and in walks the chiropractor, and we started talking. We got to know each other. I found out he was a chiropractor, and I started working in his office, and it totally changed my life. So it was Dr. Matt Hubbard, who's also here in San Diego. Mm-hmm. He has a very subluxation based model in his practice. I got adjusted regularly, whether I was in pain or not. My whole life changed. I stopped taking medication, regularly for anything. Actually, I don't think I've been on any since. And then also a couple months went by, and I was like, I haven't been sick in a long time. I haven't had an infection in a long time. I haven't been on antibiotics in a long time. And I started reflecting through my life. Every few months as a kid, I would be on antibiotics for some sort of illness. Once I started getting adjusted regularly, not one. So that really changed my life. And then, of course, I saw all these miracle stories with all the patients that came in, and, adults, kids, babies, pregnancy, everything. And so it really was an eye-opener for me of like, wow, I love chiropractic. And then one day, another chiropractor came into that office. They were going to have lunch. And we started talking. And this is Dr. Peter Seguino, who's a mile down the street from me, and we're still close now. And he said, who are you? What are you doing with your life? And I was like, well, I'm working here. It's great. I'm thinking about going to massage school. Actually, I think I was in massage school at the time. And he was like, well, why not be a chiropractor? And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the money. All the limiting things, right? Like, I can't do that. I can't do what you guys do. Plus I was a woman and I was like, I'm probably not strong enough, all the things. And he said to me, you can totally do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And think of how many more people you can serve in an hour than with a massage. And it was like, it just clicked for me. And it was like a message from God. He was like my angel. And I knew in that moment, my life's purpose was to be a chiropractor.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
So that was it.
It's so interesting to hear the journey of how people find themselves in the chiropractic world.
Yeah.
So then how did you find yourself in the world of breastfeeding?
Yeah. Okay. So, probably my first or second, maybe second quarter, I went to Life West. Probably my second quarter there, I heard Jeannie Ohm. And heard her speak about the power of chiropractic and this vitalistic model, and the importance of checking pregnant women and babies. And again, it was one of those moments where it was just like, this really resonated for me, and I just felt this really strong calling and this pull to learn more about that. So I really dove into the ICPA program and did all the training and knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I have a fun side story about Jeannie in a minute. But then I got into practice, and from day one, I really branded myself as like a pediatric pregnancy expert. And so that was what I wanted to do. And so it's always what I marketed myself as. I got married to my husband, who is a chiro kid, which is convenient. He's not a chiropractor, but so he's on board with all of our ways of home birth and not vaccinating and homeschool and all the things. So we got pregnant with our first, and we planned a home birth. It was a very, very, very long labor, 3.5 days. And we ended up with a hospital transfer. So we're going to plan this home birth. We transferred. I had an epidural and Pitocin and medication, and was really not what we planned. And then that led to a whole array of breastfeeding challenges and postpartum challenges, because it's a continuum, right? Like, the way we birth affects the way we breastfeed, and that affects how we bond with our babies. So that really set up a whole foundation of challenges from the start. And so when I would have these moms come into my practice, I was kind of like, now I get how hard this is. Now I understand how freaking hard this really is. My second son was born at home. It was much easier. It was the whole process was a lot easier. It changed a lot of things about how I lived my life before getting pregnant with him. So that was kind of my transition, was like going through it and seeing how difficult it was, and then really wanting to learn more. And then I had a family come in, and this was like the most perfect, ideal patient I could think of. Mom's name's Allie, very active, beautiful, really was into wellness, and just wanted to come in and get adjusted for her second pregnancy so that she had a better birth the second time around, and just wanted to take care of herself. Brought in her son and her husband, who's a pilot, and they were just the most wonderful patients, so ideal, right? So she had her second baby. Of course, it was a better birth because she was getting chiropractic care. And brings in her second baby a week after birth, and checking the baby. Everything's great. Breastfeeding's going great. The birth was great. She's happy. Everything is so perfect. They've got their 2 kids, and it's just the perfect scenario. So she and I have become friends, and we're kind of social. And about 5 months go by, and she texts me and she says, Steph, I'm in so much pain. My nipples are cracked and bleeding. There is blood in my breast milk. I want to quit.
Wow.
I was like, Allie, everything was fine. What do you mean? What happened? She's like, I don't know. This just crept up on me and it's just getting worse. I was like, come in earlier than your normal weekly visit. Let me check and see what's going on. So I checked the baby, and at that time I wasn't doing a lot. I do a lot of cranial work in my office. I wasn't doing a lot of oral cranial work. I was doing a little bit if there were problems with breastfeeding, but everything was fine. So I left it alone and just did my normal external cranial and subluxation analysis. And so I looked in the baby's mouth. There was a ton of tension. The baby had lip and tongue ties. And, it was just something that like, I felt like I missed and didn't really manage properly, could have been so much better had we worked on all this stuff from the start.
Mm-hmm.
So, the local dentist did a lip and tongue tie release, which I have such mixed feelings about. And that's such a big conversation in and of itself in the breastfeeding world. But we started doing more cranial work and the internal oral work, and, things got so much better, and she went on to breastfeed for another year or two. So that really led me down the path of wanting to become an IBCLC, which is an International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. I did that because there are so many lactation consultants in my community who don't understand chiropractic and the benefits of chiropractic for babies, especially for breastfeeding. And so I wanted to learn more, because I wanted to say, what are they learning and how do I bridge these two things together? So I don't practice as a lactation consultant, but what it did is it really gave me a little more credibility in my community and has driven more babies into chiropractic care, because my community knows, oh, Dr. Steph is the spot for breastfeeding. So that's really what it's done. And since then, we've started a breastfeeding support group. So we have moms come in every Monday. And what I have done is invited other lactation consultants and other professionals in the breastfeeding world to come in and be the support team for those moms. And so now all those professionals understand the power of chiropractic care and really get what we're doing here. And all the moms get free support. So it's really a win-win all around. So that's really kind of how I like niched down a lot from like this family practice to like peds and pregnancy to really getting into breastfeeding. And then we've just grown so much, and now I need more associates.
So, and isn't that a quality problem?
Right.
Right. That you have so many people that are coming in for help to assist and for chiropractic care for families, for little ones, and the ones that aren't born yet, to say we need more help. That's beautiful. So with all of that, you probably have some great birth stories or lactation stories that you could share that might inspire people.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh gosh, let's see. Well, gosh, I don't even know where to start. I have so many. I was just at a birth last week. My assistant just had a baby, and it was her first baby, and she is a tiny, tiny little thing. I mean, this woman is maybe just over 100 pounds soaking wet. She's a tiny little thing. And she asked me if I would be her doula, which I'm not a doula, but I do like supporting births. And so I attended her birth last week, and she is like such a sweet, gentle soul of a person, and she transformed into a lioness in labor. And she roared with all the power inside of her. And it's just, to me, the most beautiful thing, watching someone completely transform and like really activate the inner power that they have. So my point in describing her stature and her size is that she was a tiny little being. She roared like a lion, and she birthed a 9-pound, 10-ounce baby. This baby was huge. And so and it was a 12-hour birth, which is relatively short for a first time mom. And it was at the birth center that's next door to me, and it all went pretty smoothly. And she credits a lot of that for getting adjusted in labor and
Mhm.
staying moving, right? So I think that as chiropractors, we have this like really special little niche of being able to be present in these families' lives in such transformative times of pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding, that it's just so powerful, right? It's so important, and it can really alter the trajectory of someone's entire life. My first birth was incredibly long, and we ended up transferring. And I was really resistant in that birth. I was really resistant to movement and positional changes and things like that. And so this birth that I attended on Wednesday was such an interesting lesson for me to watch, and such a learning moment, growth moment for me, just as the outsider, of she was so open and ready to receive and not resistant and going with the flow and moving and allowing movement to move through her body. And she pushed out a huge baby relatively quickly, you know? So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it was just, you know, a beautiful example of like the power of chiropractic in labor.
But yeah, I was going to ask, have you seen over and over again, like tremendous reaffirmation of the importance of chiropractic during pregnancy and kids growing up? You're seeing that over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I think everybody has newborn stories with adjusting newborns and you know, outcomes with babies, which is always so beautiful because it's so immediate, right? And I can't tell you how often we have moms come in here who baby gets adjusted and they immediately latch better, or, you know, so many of their issues go away. And you know, I don't like to focus on symptoms and be a symptomatic based chiropractor, but it's really cool when these symptoms go away, because it's so much bigger than just, oh, my baby's pooping better or they're less colicky. It is actually creating more of a bond and a connection with mom and baby, mom and family, mom and community, family and community. So it's so much, has such a bigger ripple effect, right? Because if that baby's fussy, yeah, it's going to be a lot harder for mom to bond with that baby. That can lead to all sorts of mental health issues. That can lead to shorter breastfeeding time, which means less optimized health for baby. So there's so many things that chiropractic does that's so much bigger than symptoms, right? Which we all know. Okay.
So now, you're very involved with the ICPA. In fact, I think I just heard that you're going to be teaching Webster for them. I think I just saw that recently. That was like a new announcement.
Yeah.
So first of all, can you share a little bit about the importance of the ICPA? As you know, we just did a pediatric and prenatal summit to benefit the ICPA, but I think more people need to know about it. How is the ICPA, let's say, helped you? Let's start with that.
Totally. That's a good question. So I'm a huge fan of the ICPA, even before they asked me to start teaching. And it's one of those things where I learned so much from my ICPA training about how to really be a true pediatric prenatal chiropractor, family chiropractor, that anytime I have a lot of students who come shadow me and ask me questions or reach out to me on social media. And they always say, where should I start? What should I do? I want to do peds in practice and XYZ. And I'm like, great. So you've done ICPA training, right? And they're like, well, no, I did the lunch club. And then I went to this one seminar. And I was like, that's a great start. And you should do the whole thing.
Right.
Right. So it's like if I go to a lunch club of network and I'm like, I want to be a network chiropractor.
Right.
Like,
right.
No, come on, you need more training. Right.
Yeah. That's what people do. That's what people do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's to really dive in. I'm really a fan of like really being a specialist and an expert in the arena. And, you know, not that you have to know everything. There's so much that I don't know, but I find the more I dig in and learn, the less I know.
Right.
But that's a good thing, right? Like, and you know, that goes in line with our philosophy of like, I don't know exactly what your body needs, but I know you're going to be better off unsubluxated, right?
Like, so, like, I think the same thing. I think,
Yeah.
well, somewhat like every chiropractor should probably take, for example, a Blair class, upper cervical, or
Yeah.
club, and learn a little bit about it.
Right.
And that's so you're at least knowledgeable, have a better understanding. I think the same thing for network. I think people go to an entry level network program, they'll become a better chiropractor out of it. And then at some point, I'm really into specializing in what it is. Like, if you're going to be a Blair chiropractor, be a Blair chiropractor and focus on all that. Same thing with pediatrics, or obviously with network. Like, do that and really be that.
Really dive into it. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's so good to learn a little bit about everything and then really dive in. I sent two of my docs actually to a network training because I was like, I know this is going to be so good if you can tap in a little bit more to the energetic field of things and like bring that awareness into what we're doing. So, so I agree. I think it really serves the people you're meant to serve best. When you can really dive into something. So I usually recommend that students, if they really want to do peds and pregnancy, that they really dive into the ICPA and do the whole training. So that being said, Justin recently asked if I would come on board and teach Webster. So now there will be 3 Webster instructors: Pam Stone, who took over for Jeannie and has been teaching for a couple years now, and then myself and Dr. Jen Santos. And so we're going to like split regions of the world basically, which is really exciting because then we can offer more Webster in more locations and more frequently. So I'll be in Australia for the first one, which is convenient. My family lives there, and
wow.
Yeah, we're originally from there. So I was like, Justin, I'm going there anyway. I'll do it. Australia will be my first gig. Which is very exciting. So, but funny story. So Jeannie has always been a really big inspiration for me. I call her a mentor. She probably didn't know she was my mentor, but I was like, I love you. So when I was in school, so this was over 10 years ago, I remember, I think it was one of the big seminars, maybe the Wave or something. And it was afterwards, we had all maybe had a couple drinks, and I ran into her in the bar and I was like, Jeannie, I love what you do. I want to be you someday, and I want to take over for you someday. I said that to her. I was like, that was some liquid courage.
And what did she say?
She looked at me and she kind of had this like scoff of like, all right, you're a punk kid, you're in school. And she says to me, start a practice, have a couple kids, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
And I like, that's always stuck with me. And so when Justin called me and asked if I would come on board to teach, I nearly fell out of my chair because I was like, oh my God, like I've always wanted to do this, and to be asked to teach her class specifically, not even just for the ICPA, but her class, is a huge, huge honor. So luckily Pam is taking me under her wing and is going to help me walk me through the whole process of becoming a Webster instructor. But I'm really excited about it, and really excited just to give back to the profession and then teach an elevated way of taking care of pregnant moms. So really excited about it.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So, delving a little deeper, then relative to you being at Mile High, you guys are doing this breakout group, and people are going to be excited, energized, I think entertained also.
Hopefully.
Can you share a little bit about what this is going to be covering?
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this because I get to be on there with some of my good friends. So Jen, Bryant, and Ian and I, we have all shared many a late night conversation over chiropractic and philosophy and babies and birth. And I really think that this panel is such a high level of expertise, which is exciting. And all 4 of us are very different. So even though all 4 of us are highly specialized, we all have very different practices, very different styles, different techniques. And so we're going to bring some of that to the forefront. And one thing that was really impactful for me when I was a student, I would go visit a different chiropractic office every week in my last few months of practice. And I remember going into Michelle Arrieta's practice. She's now in Sacramento, but her practice at the time was in Petaluma. And it was this beautiful old converted barn house. And it was converted into this beautiful office building. And it was beautifully decorated. And it totally transformed my thought of what a pediatric practice should be. I always thought chiropractic offices had to be in a strip mall with beige walls and black leather chairs.
Is that what your chiropractor you went to was?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just thought that's what you do. You get a spot at a strip mall, and that's what everybody does. So it was really cool to see this like completely different layout, and it was really cool. So I'm hoping that on our panel we can bring some of that, because we are all so different, and it doesn't have to look one way. And even if you get, you know, ICPA training, everybody does it a little bit differently. And I think that's been something that really helped my practice grow, was like I stopped trying to do it like everybody else, and I just started doing it the way I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very casual in my office, not very scripted. I'm very, I cry with patients very often, because this is really intense stuff that families go through, having a baby and raising kids. And I often cry with them at their birth stories, you know, happy tears and some sad tears. We have a lot of fun. We're loud, we laugh. You know, it's a fairly flexible office. And that's very different than other people's offices, right? So hopefully we bring a little bit of that to the table, showing all of our differences, and then also diving into some clinical stuff too, because I really think that like we owe it to our patients and to our community and to chiropractic to serve better and to know more, not necessarily to do more, like Amy Spolstra says, but to know more, so that we can really be a guide for these families, right? So our office tends to be like the hub for families of like finding what they need and connecting in community, and you know, helping them on their journey of like living against the grain of the norm of what society tells you we need to do and what the news tells you need to listen to. So hopefully we bring some fun.
I mean, you've got yourself, Brian Harris, Jen Santos, Ian Stillman, and Elise. It's going to be a blast. So for sure, and very informative. You know, what advice or recommendations would you give to either student or new grad, first year or two doc, that has in their head or in their heart, or that they want to see a lot of families, see a lot of kids, and they think they want to have a pediatric focus? What would you recommend to them?
Very good question. One, get trained, right? Start with ICPA. Two, get curious, right? So get curious about, I'm really a fan of like, find who your target market is. If it's families and peds and pregnancy, then like get curious about all the things in that world. So especially if you don't have kids yet, you want to dive into this stuff, right? Like even simple things like, what are the most popular baby carriers that are out there? Who are the people in the community who are the top referrals to go to? Collaborating with the other providers in your area. And then go shadow other family practice offices, right? Go see how they do it. I have so many students that come in here. I have an open concept adjusting. We have 4 tables, and the way we work is we have 4 to 5 docs on staff at a time. And when patients come in, they just see the next doc available. So it's everybody sees everybody. And so we do it a little bit differently than maybe most practices. But just seeing how it can be different everywhere is really helpful. And then, you know, listening to the stories of these moms talk about, and listening to their birth and what they're going through, and really just getting curious about how they're living their life, you know, and diving into all the things around that arena also is really important.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm so happy you'll be at Mile High. I'm so happy for this. I mean, this is the first time we've done a pediatric focused thing within Mile High. We've had pediatric presenters, but this panel, it's going to be very exciting. And I think people are going to really have challenges choosing which breakout to go to.
Yes,
and this is
I'm gonna have a hard time with that. I want to go to all of them.
I know, but that happens each year since we started doing that. And we're really excited to have you and everyone at Higher Ground in September. So thank you for taking your time to be on the podcast with us today, and for being part of Mile High 11. It's hard to believe it's 11 years.
Cool.
Yes, and we look forward to seeing you there. We look, if you have not reserved your seats, I just got a message a little bit ago that we are almost out of hotel rooms. So people, reserve your seats and grab your hotel room, because otherwise you're going to be staying somewhere else. You want to be where the action is.
You want to be where the action is.
Of course.
It's so fun.
Why wouldn't you? Why do you want to be anywhere else? So rise up to milehigh.com. And again, I'll just mention it this time. I don't usually do, but room reservations is milehighchirohotel.com. But since those are running out, you want to do that. So Dr. Stephanie, thank you for being such a force for good in San Diego and in the world. And we look forward to seeing you and everyone on Higher Ground in September. Keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.
Thank you so much.